In the last few years, some Agile frameworks that allow you to scale, such as SAFe, LESS, DAD, have incorporated ideas from lean manufacturing. So let's do a real quick overview of the origin of lean manufacturing. Back in the early 1950s, Taiichi Ohno, an engineer at Toyota Motor Company, created a manufacturing process called the Toyota Production System, or TPS. The primary goal of TPS was to remove waste in the manufacturing process without sacrificing productivity and quality. In the late 1980s, TPS came to be known as lean manufacturing, or simply as lean. Now, lean manufacturing is a very vast topic and clearly not the focus of this course. However, as I mentioned earlier, Agile frameworks such as SAFe, LESS, and DAD have incorporated certain ideas or principles from lean manufacturing, such as smaller batch sizes, visualizing the work, limiting work in process, and stop the line mentality. These are also known as lean principles, and it is mostly these lean principles that have been adopted by the Agile frameworks that allow you to scale. Hence, these lean principles are very relevant to software development as well. In this lecture, I want to focus on the idea of smaller batch sizes. According to studies, whether it is manufacturing or software development, creating products in smaller batch sizes is highly recommended as it provides several advantages, such as more predictability in the process, lower uncertainty, faster feedback, and reduced defects or rework, to name a few. Now notice that I have been using the word smaller and not small batch size. I'm pointing this out since there is no one universal small batch size that applies to all. The right size of a batch is relative and depends on what is being manufactured or developed. A good batch size is one which balances two things: transaction costs and holding costs. Transaction cost is the fixed and variable cost for doing the work, such as cost of labor, cost of equipment, cost of facilities, etc. Holding cost is the cost of delaying feedback or value delivery to the customer by not performing the work. In manufacturing, holding cost is the cost of inventory, that is, the cost of storing raw material. Holding costs and transaction costs are terms from lean manufacturing, so out of scope for this course. The reason I have mentioned these two terms is to make you aware that determining the right size of a batch is not guesswork, rather there is science behind it. So how do you incorporate smaller batch sizes in Agile software development? Smaller batch sizes can be experienced or incorporated in Agile software development by managing the size or duration of the following: user story size, iteration or sprint duration, and code check-in intervals. Aim to create user stories that can be implemented, that is designed, coded, and tested in no more than 3 or 4 days or so. The sooner the better. In other words, user stories in your product backlog should be small enough that they can be implemented in a day, 2 days, 3 days, or max 4 days. Again, the sooner the better. Now, this rule of thumb is not the result of any mathematical formula, rather it is the result of consensus among several leading Agile practitioners in the world. With respect to iteration or sprint duration, the same logic applies. The shorter, the better. As you know, the founders of Scrum recommend that sprints can be either 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or max of 4 weeks. However, if you'd like to reduce your batch size, use 2-week durations for sprints. Finally, checking in code multiple times a day also enables working in smaller batch sizes. This is because by doing so, each code check-in contains fewer lines of code, which helps in quick debugging in case there are errors while checking in the code. By adopting these recommendations with respect to user story size, sprint duration, and code check-in, you will be able to reap the benefits of smaller batch sizes in software development. Now, earlier in this lecture, I talked about transaction costs and its definition. If transaction costs are higher, they tend to make batch sizes bigger, which, as we know now, is not good. In other words, the smaller your transaction costs, the smaller your batch sizes can be. So this means that one should try to reduce the transaction costs. But how do you reduce transaction costs? One way to do so is to use automation. By automating certain manual tasks and functions, you are able to reduce, even eliminate the cost of labor, and thereby able to reduce your transaction costs, which will then allow you to push or reduce your batch sizes lower. There is a video that demonstrates the tremendous benefit of lowering transaction costs. I have posted the URL of the video in the resources section of this lecture. So pause me right now and go watch the video, and please come back to the lecture for final thoughts on this topic. Welcome back. So as you hopefully noticed in the 2013 pit stop, it is automation that saves the day. Everything from the quick lifting of the car using superior jacks to super fast removal and installation of the wheels, all of these were the result of using smart tools and automation, which allowed the team to work in small batches. Alright, so that's it for this lecture, and hopefully you found the concepts I introduced in this lecture informative.